Good afternoon and welcome to the 2004 Gleitsman Award presentations. It's a special honor for us at Kennedy School and for us at the Center for Public Leadership to welcome you here and to thank and salute Alan Gleitsman and for his enlightened leadership, his own enlightened citizen activist leadership, and setting up this awards program that now has come to the Kennedy School for the 6th year. And those of you who have had a chance to participate in this in the past know that the Gleitsman Foundation, under Alan and Rhee's strong guidance and their personal engagement, has over the past several years recognized a number of outstanding individuals who are engaged in social activism here in the United States and overseas. And what's especially gratifying about this occasion is that an earlier awardee from the foundation was a woman named Wendy Kopp, who started Teach for America, an excellent organization and education that has drawn enormous numbers of young people to teaching in public schools. And that 4 of the winners today are alumni of Teach for America. In other words, an earlier award winner has now spawned 4 award winners, which only means that a few years from now we're going to be sitting here and there are going to be 16 people in the audience who are award winners spawned by those of you who are here. So I think it must be, Alan, it must be such a gratifying occasion for you to know that in your promotion and recognition of people who have been active in this special niche, that they have gone on to give, in effect, raise a new generation of people who have been effective, and that this is a virtuous cycle that you have helped to put into place. I also want to thank some of the members of the faculty of the School of Education for coming here today, and for Jerry Murphy in particular, who is former dean of the School of Education. There are growing bonds between this school, Kennedy School, and School of Education that have recently been nurtured by a program training school superintendents. The Ed School has become, I think, is notable now for reaching out not only to Kennedy School, but also is going to be working with the business school on training future education leaders. And it's part of this new trend at Harvard where the walls are coming down among the schools and the cooperation is going up, the partnership is going up. And it's been a special pleasure for us at the Kennedy School and our center to be participating in this. And Jerry just came over not long ago to work with us on another program. So we welcome this kind of engagement, and I want to thank all of you from the Ed School. But now this special occasion. Alan said a couple of years ago, this was the year to recognize people within America who are doing special things to contribute to the welfare of this society. And I remember talking to him a couple of years ago about how much he really wanted to recognize those who were engaged in education reform. That he thought education went to providing greater educational opportunity, especially for those in the shadows of life, ought to be one of the most important missions that we undertake as a society, and he would like to be part of that. And I know he's worked very hard through the foundation and through others who have been screening the applicants, and Wendy was one of the people I think he turned to for some names, to try to find the best social activists in the country who are pioneers. And it was a pleasure for me to sit down and to understand this morning just how well you've succeeded, Alan, in talking with those of you who are here as awardees, to know what you're doing. It is at a time when the country is going through a difficult passage, not only overseas, but in our discourse here at home, and so many are angry or upset or discouraged. These are really jewels that you've brought to our midst, people to celebrate, to honor, and we thank you for this, Alan, and you, Rhee, for your kind and gracious support of this program and linking up with the Kennedy School and with our center. I'm going to turn this over to Alan to present the awards, and I have to slip away from class to talk about a man who only had the benefit of a public school education, Harry Truman, never had the benefit of going to college. But what happened through K through 12 made all the difference. So it's, I know wherever I speak in saying you're on the right track. Alan, we thank you for being here. Thank all of you for being here. Alan Gleitsman.
Since I have this microphone, need I still be wired, folks? Who's in charge? Okay, I'll just talk. I want to express my thanks to David for giving us the opportunity to present the Gleitsman Foundation Citizen Activist Awards here this afternoon. And we greatly appreciate his assistance and that of Betsy Myers, and most particularly Scott Webster, who has made most of the arrangements for the honorees for not only this afternoon, but for the balance of the time that they're going to be on campus. And if I may, I'd like to thank the Kennedy School researchers, the students that have helped us immeasurably in researching the finalists. And I'm glad to say that many of them are here today and will introduce the honorees. So they have a special connection with the honorees. And lastly, before we start, please recognize Sherry Roche, who is Gleitsman Foundation. A very, very essential part of everything that we do. The Gleitsman Foundation, I might as well say what we do. The Gleitsman Foundation seeks to motivate activism by recognizing the extraordinary achievement of those who have brought about social change. And in the 15 years of our existence, we've saluted more than 250 men and women whose actions are truly inspirational, and none more so than those that you're going to meet this afternoon. As David mentioned, this year we have focused the award on those that are struggling to improve K-12 public education. We have 12 honorees working in 10 programs, and what I think you will find most interesting is that they have all taken different approaches in their attempt to cure this most intractable problem facing us almost everywhere in the country today. I am often asked what makes a successful activist, and I've just read a very interesting book that I recommend to you, written by a friend, David Bornstein, in which the title of the book is How to Change the World, Social Entrepreneurs and the Power of New Ideas. David takes the position that if ideas are to take root, this is a quote from his book, if ideas are to take root and spread, they need champions, obsessive people who have the skill, motivation, energy, and in fact, bullheadedness to do whatever is necessary to move them forward, to persuade, inspire, seduce, cajole, enlighten, touch hearts, alleviate fears, shift perceptions, articulate meanings, and artfully maneuver them through the system. The honorees that you will meet this afternoon have done that and more. And that's why they've been successful. And that's why we hold them up as an example to all of you who would hope one day to follow your own activist dreams. I know you're anxious to meet the honorees, and I'd like to at this time introduce the Kennedy School student researchers who will make the specific introduction. Each student will come up here, make the introduction, and that honoree will then come forward, and then we continue on in the cycle. But so that you know, the honoree The researchers are Adam Briones, Melissa Whitman, Kira Martinez, Wanja Jaguna, Shannon Marcoux, Sandy Alexander, Pauline Sullivan, Nancy Taylor, and Ryan Robinson. And at this point, I'd like to ask Adam to come up and make the first introduction.
Good afternoon. As a 6th grade teacher with Teach for America in one of Houston's poorest neighborhoods, Christopher Barbic saw firsthand how children in low-income communities were ravaged by literacy, drug abuse, teenage pregnancy, and gang violence. He decided to do something about it. So in the spring of 1995, Mr. Barbic founded Project Yes, Youth Engaged in Service, a youth school that offered a more rigorous curriculum and engaged youth in community service. After 3 years, he realized that this school was only postponing the problems that youth face. So he applied for a state charter, moved the school to a new 25-acre site, and enlarged the program to include high school. And the results have been phenomenal. Daily attendance is now at 98%. Students average a 90% pass rate on the Texas Standardized Test. But even more amazing is that every single student in the school's inaugural graduating class was accepted to college, which is a requirement for graduation. And you got to remember that 85% of these children that were accepted to college are the first in their family to actually go on to receive a higher education. Mr. Barbic's commitment and leadership is why we honor him today with the Gleitsman Foundation Citizen Activist Award.
How this award came about, so that you know. This was created by Maya Lin, and when I called to ask her to create a sculpture for us, she of course asked about the purpose of the award. And I told her we were seeking activists that had changed the world. And she came back to me in a few days and she said it was her feeling that some people had the ability to see things more clearly, almost as if they were magnified. And this sculpture encompasses that vision, as you can see.
Well, on behalf of the 700 students in Yes College Prep and the 57 alumni that we have in colleges around the country, I want to first thank Mr. Gleitsman for this award. I was shocked and surprised when I got the phone call that I'd won, and now that I've been here and gotten to meet the other honorees, I'm more than anything else just humbled to be in the same company with the people that are here today. When we started Project Yes, and I say we because Sheila Cavaney is here, and she was one of the first people with me when we started. I don't think we really knew why we were doing this, other than we were just tired of watching kids come back from the middle school and tell us how crappy it was. And from there, I think we kind of perfected our mission. And really, what we want to do is we want to change neighborhoods. And we feel like the only way you can change inner city neighborhoods is if there's a critical mass of college-educated people who grew up in that community and who were instilled with the sense to come back and make it better. And it's been an awesome experience to watch our kids rise to that challenge and to meet the standard of college acceptance in order to graduate. When we first put that in the charter, everyone thought we were crazy, but I felt like we needed to keep ourselves on the hook. That if we didn't put that in the charter and make that just from day one the standard, it would have been too easy to rationalize why we didn't get there. And I didn't want that to happen. In the short term, I think what we're trying to do is just get more low-income minority kids into four-year schools and have them be successful while they're there. But in the long term, it's this idea of changing communities that was what we're really all about. And I am 100% confident that someday in the not-so-distant future, one of our alumni is going to be doing great things, is going to be standing up here accepting this award. And I think when that day comes, things are going to come full circle, and I couldn't be prouder. But until that day, we're going to keep plugging away, getting our kids out into schools and doing the best we can to change neighborhoods. And to have this recognition, to be able to go back and tell our kids that someone from 1,000 miles away recognizes their hard work is going to mean a lot to them, and it certainly means a lot to me. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Committed, charismatic, and controversial. These are all words that have been used to describe our next honoree, Dr. Yvonne Chan, principal of the Vaughan Next Century Learning Center and a leader in the charter school movement. Dr. Chan is a woman of action and inspiration. And it's the stories behind the statistics that are so phenomenal. For example, when the local police department was slow in closing a crack house nearby the school, Dr. Chan led the effort to raise the money in order to purchase the house and have it demolished. And in addition, she used $20,000 of her own money to visit her homeland of China, along with 84 Vaughan teachers, for an educational exchange program. Amazing. And it was met with great success. This woman has been honored with numerous awards, including the California State Department of Education National Educator Award and the McGraw-Hill Prize Education Award. It is my great pleasure to add the Gleitsman Activist Award to that impressive list. So, Dr. Yvonne Chan.
Thank you. Well, I am so thrilled to be honored among such a group of real recognized people, educators in this nation. And really, to me, this award is the American dream that I talk about today. Some many years ago, and thanks to our late President John F. Kennedy, I'm in the Kennedy School, can you imagine? 1962, because of that democratic procedure, I was put in a slow boat across the Pacific Ocean from China, real slow boat, and in search for the Gold Mountain. The Chinese name for America is the Gold Mountain. I found more than gold. I found great people who mentored me. I found all the golden opportunities. I found compassion for kids, love for teaching, the courage to be different, and the enthusiasm to bring everybody along. And I will share this award with my school community. The Vaughan Next Century Learning Center is a mouthful. 1,600 kids, but it's this community that live in high poverty area of Los Angeles, where 100% of students are free and reduced lunch, was totally segregated, came above and beyond, and turned a throwaway school into a national blue ribbon school, and pushed all the reform limits under the charter school law, and now become a full-service neighborhood public school. Now, I will definitely want to say that a lot of people call us, you are the little school that could, I think I can. No, we can't. But, Ellen, the Gleitsman Foundation is a foundation who could. 10 years ago, both Mr. Gleitsman and Sherry visited Vaughan. We're not in good shape then. However, he talked about social justice. You talked to the community, you didn't just talk to me. You gave us hope, and you gave us the confidence to carry on. And we are here because you planted the seeds. With this check, we will be able to send 150 fifth graders to a science camp next week. In fact, they called me this morning. They said, please tell everybody that our bags are packed and ready to go. And muchísimas gracias, and we love you so. Thank you.
In 1994, after completing their Teach for America commitment, Michael Feinberg and David Levin started KIP, the Knowledge is Power program. KIP started because Mike and David were committed to illustrating that students in low-income areas excel when they were given the opportunities they deserved. KIP started with 55th graders in inner city Houston, and they have blazed a trail of success since then. Indeed, they have revolutionized public education in America. KIP initially launched 2 KIP schools, one in Texas and one in Bronx, New York. 98% of KIP alumni matriculate into top high schools and have earned over $18 million in scholarships. Others have seen KIP success, and in 2000, Doris and Donald Fisher, founders of Gap Incorporated, embraced the vision. Today, KIP has been expanded into a national non-profit. In 2001, KIP schools were opened in America by KIP graduates. 3 schools in 2001, 10 in 2002, and 17 schools in 2003. That is a lesson in commitment. It is a lesson in vision. It is a lesson in leadership. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Michael Feinberg and David Levin, winners of the
Alan, Sherry, and everyone at the Gleitsman Foundation, thank you so much for this honor, and thank you for giving us 2 of these, because it saves us from having to go outside and find a basketball net and have a basketball game to see who gets to take it home, which we still might do for the checks. We'll see. Just to keep things competitive. You know, first off, I'd just like to say thank you. This award, beyond going to Dave and me, goes to all the KIPsters, the teachers, the parents, especially the kids themselves, who are the music makers and the dreamers of the dream, who are willing to go to school from 7:30 to 5 o'clock, go home, do 2 or 3 hours of homework, have a quick dinner, go to bed, and wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning and do it all over again the very next day. They are my heroes, and I appreciate that, and just thank you again for what you're doing. Every time we, it's neat to get these awards and recognitions, but I always feel like that given that one of the things we teach our kids is actions speak louder than words. And anytime we get a chance to sit back and smell the roses and say, job well done, important to make sure there's a challenge at that same time too. It's important to keep plowing on because there's so much work to do. And the challenge I'm recommitting myself to, and Dave, and I hope everyone here in the room, is that there's an expression in most of our schools that we need to tweak and edit a little bit. If you go to most of our schools, there's a line there somewhere that says, all children can learn. Nice thought, people don't believe that. They need to get out of our schools. But we need to change one word of that. We need to change the word can to will. All children will learn. Because the day we adopt that in our classrooms, in our schools, in our districts, in our cities, and in the states, that day we will get much closer to being able to truly say that all our children are well. So here's to the day that all of our kids do get an excellent education in this country. And once again, thanks to the Gleitsman Foundation and my fellow award winners. Congratulations to all the wonderful work that you guys are doing too. Thank you.
I just wanted to echo Mike's thanks and appreciation, and to quickly throw out 5 scenarios, which 2 people in the room have heard today, so I apologize for being repetitive, but which describe how many of our kids feel. It's not really about our kids, it's about a disease that our country faces. So I'm going to tell you 5 things. Number 1 was drying out. Number 2 was a loss of energy. Number 3 was difficulty focusing. That sounds like a lot of kids in public school, right? Well, number 4 doesn't sound like public school. Those goiters, those big things that grew out of people's necks. And number 5 was a loss of sexual drive. Anyone know the disease I'm talking about? Afflicted a large part of the country in the 1930s and earlier was iodine deficiency. And the solution to iodine deficiency, which no one's heard of anymore, was table salt. Iodized table salt. If you go to McDonald's, you get plenty of it. But everyone gets iodized salt. rich people, poor people, people of all backgrounds, of all colors. Everyone gets iodized salt. And I think in the spirit of the Gleitsman Activist Award, I think that's what we're all trying to do together, is provide that experience to the kids in public schools in this country. Not for a select group, but for everybody. And it's just been an honor spending the day with such a great group. And look forward to working with hopefully more people in this room as we move forward. So thank you very much, and I look forward to talking with you.
Fired up is what describes Bertha Lewis. A few years ago, Bertha suffered a housing crisis that turned her into a feared and fearless activist that she is today. Armed with anger at seeing poor children cast aside in the political bankruptcy of the New York City school system, Bertha found out that only in organizing parents to be a power to be reckoned with could things change in the education system. Bertha has used parents, something that a lot of people ignore, to make things move in New York City. It is not surprising that in a story in New York Times of March 14, 2001, Bertha, known for her mastery in organizing, is said to have spent the previous 2 months whipping up opposition to Edison schools, the for-profit company hoping to take over 5 schools in September of that year. With charm, political survey, and old-fashioned hard work, she rallied politicians, parents, and community groups to the anti-Edison cause, making the company's future in New York even more uncertain. Edison runs charter and contract schools. Charter schools are independent startup schools, whereas contract schools are existing schools taken from a board of education. That's how dangerous she is. Besides her fight for good education, Bertha has turned ACON, originally known for their struggle in the housing field, into an organization that is at the forefront of streamlining the education system in the areas where it has membership all across the country. Last January, Bertha Lewis told a national newspaper that year after year, the minimum wage stays the same and the cost of living goes up. My interpretation of this was that the system in America has to be wholesome if the education of our children is going to be a priority. It was very, very difficult researching on Bertha, and this was because everywhere you went, there were like hundreds of articles on Bertha. Choosing which ones to look for was very, very difficult. She is written about by almost every newspaper, almost every other day. Today I went in there to look and there were like hundreds of articles. It's very difficult researching on Bertha. And that's why I feel very, very proud to introduce Bertha Lewis, the Executive Director of the New York chapter of Association of Community Organizations for Reform, now ACON, the nation's largest community organization of low and moderate community families, with over 120,000 member families organized into 600 neighborhoods. Bertha.
Well, something. The first thing I have to say is this. You know, I get a lot of calls. Some of them are crank calls. You know, folks that I've had a little run-in with. And I got this call one day, and the guy said, "Hello, this is Alan Gleitsman." I'm like, and so what office are you running for? What are you trying to do? And you know. And so no, this is Alan Gleitsman from the Gleitsman Foundation, and I'm calling you to say that you're the recipient of the 2004 Citizen Activist Award. I'm like, and I almost said, "Listen, buddy, I'm busy here." But it was him. It was him that actually called me on the phone, and I think Alan will tell you, I said this big, whoa, my gosh, this is, because it was exciting for me to be honored. People don't believe this, but I'm kind of shy. And, you know, when people say to me, you know, you're a leader or this or that, it makes me sort of uncomfortable because I feel as though I'm getting away with something. I just had a birthday on Saturday, March 20th. Birthday. 53 years. You might call me the menopausal organizer. Watch out. But for me, just personally, I kind of flash back to my childhood because people say to you, how did you wind up doing this? What are you doing? I wasn't supposed to be doing this. I was supposed to be a great theatrical actress and producer. I was going to change the world through musicals, you know, social justice musicals. And something happened to me personally that led me into organizing, and I always felt that I came too late. But I could not have done anything else, because when I was a little girl growing up in South Philadelphia, I didn't realize that I was one of those gifted children that went into programs, and I would stay after school and I did really well. And folks thought that I was very smart. What they didn't realize was I had 7 brothers and sisters, and I was the oldest girl, so I would do anything, you know, to get out of those chores. My grandmother was poor. She was an alcoholic, and I used to have to pick her up from the bar every day after school. And I would walk her home. And at that time, along the Delaware River waterfront, there were shacks, you know, coal burning stoves, an ace, deuce, and tray. And that's what my grandmother lived in. And because we grew up in the ghetto of Philadelphia, you know, they had rats this big. And there were 4 and 5 of us that slept in the bed. And we lived in a tenement. And we were walking along this particular day, and there were these pilings going up, like steel girders. And it said, coming soon, Society Hill, luxury apartments. And I was thrilled. And I said, Grandma, look, they're going to build some housing for us. And they're going to be luxury. 9 years old, I didn't understand. My grandmother, who was always very jolly, especially after I picked her up, adored me, never wanted to say anything harsh to me. And she turned to me that day, and she was trembling, and she was in a rage, and tears were coming out of her eyes. And she looked at me and shook me. She never put her hands on me, and she said, Bertha May, those people got plans, and they don't include you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this award is not for me. This award was not earned by me. This award was earned by Francine Lewis, who put that seed in me that day. This award is earned by our national president, Maud Hurd, who's sitting out here in the audience, on whose shoulders I stand. This award is for all of those poor, low income, black and brown and yellow and white ACORN members who fight every day. Because you know what, folks? Because of folks like Alan Gleitsman, you know, organizers don't usually get any kind of awards for anything. People are like, get out of here. Because of that, this little 9-year-old girl can say, well, we got plans. And they include all of our children. And I'm happy that the Gleitsman Foundation decided that they included him too. ACORN has a saying, the people united will never be defeated. All of us coming from different approaches. Thank you all. I really am humbled and I appreciate this. And as my members say, si se puede. Yes, we can. Thank you.
of our honorees here today, Michelle Rhee started her work in education reform as a Teach for America teacher. After 3 years of teaching in Baltimore, she came here, got her master's in public policy, and went on to build the New Teacher Project. The New Teacher Project believes that our nation's most talented citizens will dedicate themselves to teaching and improving public education if school districts and their schools give them the opportunity and support they need. The New Teacher Project recruits, selects, and trains outstanding new teachers and creates school environments that maximize their impact on student achievement. Works with various educational entities, state departments of education, urban and rural school districts, colleges, and universities. Under Michelle's leadership as CEO and president, the New Teacher Project has grown to a national organization that has recruited over 10,000 new teachers for hard-to-staff urban and rural public schools across the country. Join me in honoring Michelle and her work in K-12 education.
I'm honored to be here in the company of so many other people who are working on such critical issues in education, but I have to say that I feel a little bit sheepish about this award because unlike the 11 other people who have won this, I don't really have impressive individual accomplishments. The only remarkable thing that I've been able to do is hire an incredible staff of people who are bright, motivated, and driven every day to do the hard work of the New Teacher Project, so I accept this on their behalf. When we started the New Teacher Project 6.5 years ago, we did not intend to be activists. Our goals were basic. We wanted to partner with school districts and states and bring better teachers in. But as I suppose often happens, and I think happened with Chris and Mike and Dave to a certain extent, our work has become more activist in nature simply because we've realized that the systems in public education are so deeply entrenched in ways that hurt kids, and particularly low-income kids, that we've become increasingly focused on how we overcome or get around these systemic barriers. More and more, I think our work at the New Teacher Project has shown that it's the systems and the adults who benefit from those systems that are standing between kids and real opportunity. I find it so surprising on many levels that I'm getting the Citizen Activist Award because most people would not think that it takes activism to ensure that kids get quality teachers, that talented and smart professionals from other fields, lawyers and doctors, judges, bankers, should be able to teach kids who need them. But public education is sometimes a very counterintuitive world, and it does take activism and a willingness to take on these entrenched interests to break down these barriers. 2 weeks ago, I visited a school in the Bronx where the principal had hired 4 of our teaching fellows 2 years ago, and this past year hired 10 fellows. So I went to go ask her about what she thought of our people. And she replied to me in her very sharp New York accent. She said, "Be clear, these people are prima donnas, every one of them." She said, "But that's okay." She said, "Because they're indignant attitudes about the situation that the kids are in and their corresponding dogged pursuit to make sure that their kids have the resources, the motivation, and the expectations necessary to be successful have raised the bar for everyone in this school." She said, "I'm never going to hire anyone but a teaching fellow from now on." In another school in Kansas City, we placed about a dozen teaching fellows in one of the lowest performing middle schools in the district. And they made up about a third of the faculty there. At the end of the year, I went to speak to the assistant principal, and she sort of said to me, "You know, I didn't really want to hire all these people. I didn't think it was a good idea to have so many new people who didn't know about teaching coming to my school, but nobody else wanted to come and I was desperate." She said, "But not only have things like attendance and parental involvement and student participation gone up, but we posted this year the second highest test score gains of any school in the district. And she said, I think that that's driven in large part by the culture shift that's happened in the school because of these people. When I asked her, then how many teaching fellows are you going to hire next year, she said that for the first time since anyone in the school could remember, there were no vacancies in that school for the following year. So I'm so touched that the work of these 10,000 teachers that we placed and hopefully will continue to place in these districts is being recognized through this. And what I'll end on is the fact that I think as programs like this and the others that are being recognized today grow, I think that sort of the detractors start to come out of the woodwork and say, well, but you did this and that. So as our work gets harder, I think it's very encouraging to know that folks like the Gleitsman Foundation are supporting what we do and helping us to grow. Thank you.
When I got the assignment to research Mark Rosenbaum, I quickly found out that his name has never been in the headline of a major newspaper. And so I thought that my research might not take me very long. On the contrary, Mr. Rosenbaum must be one of the most effective and dedicated activists in America. For over 2 decades, he's used his position at the American Civil Liberties Union of Southern California to be a powerful advocate for the poor, especially in education. Mr. Rosenbaum has filed lawsuits to improve education at every level in California, from individual schools to school districts to the entire state school system. He's sued and led efforts to help students with disabilities, to help students gain access to the classes they need to go to college, and to help make the system fairer and dedicate its resources to the students who need those resources the most. Understanding Mr. Rosenbaum's career, it must be about extreme personal commitment. As long ago as 1993, Mark Rosenbaum was one of the top candidates to become legal director of the United States ACLU, one of the top legal jobs in the world. For 11 years, since not getting that promotion, he has stayed at his work in California, fighting for children, families, and schools. When you talk to him about his agenda for the next year, you can feel his commitment to help the children and families in his state get the education they deserve. We are all fortunate that Mark Rosenbaum is doing the work that he does. Please join me in congratulating him for winning the 2004 Citizen Activist Award.
Thank you, Sandy. That was very nice. Really appreciate that. Alan and Sherry, thank you for this day. I'm very grateful for this. This is from my mom. Before I was born, she was a second grade teacher. She's now in a facility for Alzheimer's. I know she would be as proud of this day as I am of her. I'm so touched by this honor today. It's special in part because of the company of the 11 other individuals who have also been recognized. Their commitment and their accomplishments genuinely inspire me. As I listened to their stories last night, today, and again this afternoon, I was moved by their love for children and their belief in the profound power of caring. This honor is also meaningful for me because I know who Alan Gleitsman is. In singling out citizen activists, the Gleitsman Foundation promotes social activism. is the most effective and enduring solution for political and cultural change. In my office in Los Angeles, it doesn't receive the attention of these awards today, but Alan has made possible summer clerkships for deserving law students who otherwise would not be able to work in a public interest law office. By sponsoring these students, he has afforded them experiences that have often led to career choices that have changed their student lives. Each summer, I've watched Alan at long personal lunches, not unlike our meals last night and today, take an interest in these young men and women. He Gleitmanizes them. They walk out dazed, but committed. He reveals by his deeds that faith in each of us is the indispensable condition for sustaining idealism. He has raised many lives. We know that there is no suffering like the suffering of a child. Our schools have failed our children, not the other way around. The schools where the children we know attend are too often schools in name only. Children there must share classrooms with rats and other vermin. I've been in classrooms where young children defecate on themselves because there are no bathrooms available, where rain pours in through holes in ceilings, long unrepaired, for months. In California, 1 million children, 1/3 of all kids, have no books for their classes. Another 900,000, no books to take home to study. Schools without books. Or children with books so old, so outdated, that the President of the United States is the first George Bush, and the Soviet Union is characterized as the gravest threat to democracy. We all know the race and ethnicity and the income level of the children in these schools. In the state of Berkeley and Stanford and UCLA and the Silicon Valley, the 5th largest economy in the world, our children are 45th in reading, 44th in math. Only 20% of California's 8th grade students score above proficient. In per pupil expenditures, California is 46th. The high school exit exam in California has been suspended because were it in fact to be implemented as intended, in many schools, 90% of seniors, largely black and brown, would never graduate. 77,000 English learners in California receive no services whatsoever. And until recently, the state of California, in one of the lawsuits Sandy mentioned, paid lawyers some $20 million to argue before a Superior Court judge that children don't need books. Their lawyer said to me, "Why give them books? They can't read anyway." 50 years after Brown, the dream remains a distant reality. Yet what endures, what sustains us, is our unhallowed belief in the dignity and the potentiality of every child. What I love most about my life is its intensity, the privilege of being entrusted with the pain of neglect and indifference, the opportunity to share with others the joy of children discovering themselves. For it is through that process that we may take pause in our contention with the world and recall the democratizing purpose of education. The most elemental lesson of childhood, left pure and nourished, that the sound of the universe is the beat of a child's heart. Thank you very much.
That's a back to form. Education is fundamental both to individual advancement and to achieve national growth. But as we've just seen, not everyone has equality of access to these opportunities. In establishing the College Summit, JB Schramm was determined to help low-income high school students break the generational cycle of not attending college. The College Summit program takes mid-tier students who otherwise would probably not apply to college and helps them navigate the admissions process. This is not just about filling out forms or sitting tests, it's also about building confidence and helping these students realise their potential. The results speak for themselves. Since 1993, 5,000 students have participated in the program, with 79% gaining entry into college. This is compared to a national average of 46% for students from the same income level. But the benefits don't stop there. Through the program, local schools are partnering with local colleges, and probably even more importantly, many of these students then return home after college and invest their newfound intellectual capital in helping the community. And this is helping to continue the cycle of success. It is my pleasure to introduce JB Schramm.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Sherry. I would like to start off by recognizing a special person here to celebrate this with me, the love of my life, my wife, Lauren. When Alan was reading those attributes at the beginning from David Bordenstein's book of what it takes to change, or the attributes of people who bring change, my wife squeezed my hand at the word bullheaded. Not at any of the others, though. But it is truly an honor to be in the company of fellow bullheaded changers and to be a part of the growing Gleitsman family. So I accept this on behalf of our school district partners from the Chicago Public Schools to the Kanawha County, West Virginia Public Schools, our higher ed partners from the University of Chicago to Southern Cal, but most importantly, the 2,800 students who will participate in the program this year. When Bertha was talking about that moment when her justice bone got locked, made me think of a similar, though very different moment for myself. And it was senior year of high school. I'd attended inner city schools growing up. I had the experience of going from elementary school to junior high to senior high with the same group of buddies. And there was that time senior year when we were all standing around talking about what we were going to do. And I was the one going to college. And I knew that all of them could have gone too. The reason they weren't going wasn't because they weren't college capable. It was because my parents had gone to college and I relied on them through the application process. And my friends' parents hadn't gone to college and they relied on a system in our school that didn't function. That's when I started getting interested in this issue. But that issue isn't just about me and East High School. That issue is about this country. According to congressional researchers, every year there's 200,000 low-income students who are college ready who don't go on to college. For every one of those young people, if they were to go on to college, they'd end poverty in their family line forever. They'd earn $1 million more bucks, their kids would be almost twice as likely to go to college. If we were to get all those 200,000 to go to college instead of not, there'd be an additional $80 billion in federal, in all tax revenue, $60 billion in federal tax revenue. So what can be done? It's about changing the systems. It's about three things. It's about getting the students to produce portfolios so that we see talents that the test scores miss. It's about getting school districts to create a system so that the teachers are a part of the process, helping the students through the process. And it's about getting universities to look at students holistically so that they don't miss talent that could otherwise serve their communities, serve their families, and serve all of us. So on behalf of those young people, on behalf of Americans who know that there is the talent out there, and it's just our responsibility to see that those 200,000 young people get the opportunity to contribute as fully, as muscularly as possible, that I accept this with great joy. Thank you.
An elementary school teacher of 30 years, Agnes Stevens hardly went into quiet retirement. Piling up high stacks of school supplies, she decided to drive around LA County using her pension for those school supplies, drive around LA County and help out homeless children teaching lessons. Learning firsthand the obstacles that these children faced in one of our poorest communities in this nation, she decided to set forth to transform these realities. Starting in 1993, she opened School on Wheels, offering one-on-one tutoring and a chance for assistance to eliminate those barriers for school reentry to those amazing families and children. Today, hundreds of mobilized community volunteers touch and inspire the lives of homeless children across LA County in the shelters, cars, motels, and streets of Los Angeles. Agnes Stevens' inspiring work has enhanced educational opportunities for 15,000 students in 10 years. Yet for Agnes, every young person she represents is not a number, but a child with bright eyes and a capable mind, if only given the opportunity to learn and a chance to succeed. Please join me in welcoming this Gleitsman Citizen Activist of 2004, an amazing, unrelenting educator.
My heart is very full today, and I owe it all to the Gleitsman Foundation, to Alan, and to Sharon. And it's full because it's given me an opportunity to be here with you, and I really mean it. I learned so much today, and I've been inspired by the other recipients. It also gives me a chance, that's what I said to Alan when I first heard, I'll have a chance to highlight the most forgotten children trying to receive an education. I always get when I talk about them. But I think it was Mark today that said that a measure of our country is how we treat our children. And that's what I want you to remember today. If nothing else from me, that there's thousands upon thousands of homeless children out there that have a tough, they get up every morning in the kind of atmosphere that Mark described about the schools. Well, that's their life too. They're in these hotels, they're in cars, they're in shelters, and they have just one thing to do, to try to get an education like any other child in America. Oh, I didn't expect to get this emotional, but when I talk about them, I can't help but it. What the driving force of these children, they're the real heroes. They don't have a school to call their own, they don't have a home to call their own. And so, I get this honor here, but it's really the hundreds of volunteers that we have. And I'm going to put a spotlight on somebody who doesn't want to be, besides my two brothers. Sitting in between them is a pioneer that wrote me last January, and she's going to be a pioneer in Brockton, Massachusetts, starting the School on Wheels here. A volunteer, a pioneer, and she believes in this, and she wrote us. So Massachusetts is lucky to have Cheryl Ober. Thank you. And thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Harvard is a very interesting place to me because I think the reason that a lot of us come here is to learn how to be impact players. I think we've seen a lot of impact players in this room today. And it brings me joy and a delight to introduce yet another. Margot Stern Strom created an organization called Facing History, Facing Ourselves. And the remarkable thing about Facing History, Facing Ourselves is that it is a program which encourages junior high school students to examine in a very careful and very critical fashion the history of this nation and the history of others vis-a-vis the problems of racism, anti-Semitism, and prejudice. In 1997, Bill Clinton attempted to engage our nation in a national dialogue on issues of race and prejudice. Little did he know, 18 years prior to that, this little school teacher from Brookline, Massachusetts, created a curriculum that has now reached millions of children in this nation. That is my definition of an impact player. One of the things I love to do is drop stones into the Charles River, and you can see the ripple effect. If we were to drop Margot Stern Strom into the Charles River, it would be like dropping a 20 megaton bomb into the Charles River. The ripple effect that she's had on this nation's children and their education has been downright incredible. And I salute you and I thank you so much for the work that you've done. It touches me very much as the child of two people who grew up in Montgomery, Alabama during the Civil Rights Movement. I've seen the change that this nation.
So to my staff and my colleagues, my friends and my family, this is so important. You are indeed a great philanthropist. You are making such a difference. You'd have to jump in the Charles with me. Someone would have to pull me out. Thank you, Sherry, for everything. Jerry Murphy, where are you? He had to leave. So I was going to say something to Jerry, who's been so kind, as he watched Facing History develop its relationship with Harvard. And most recently, we've developed a new relationship with Harvard Law School as well, as a model for the kind of relationships that we depend on all over this country to help bridge the academic world and the research world and the scholarship world to the classroom, to bring extraordinary unsung heroes and heroines making a difference all over this world into teacher training workshops and institutes, and ultimately to model the kind of work that they do so that they can go back into the classroom and tap those moral capacities of their children. I collect dead heroes. I do a lot of odd things, but I do collect dead teachers. In one way, I think it's because if they're virtual, they can't say that I get an F if I describe what they taught me. So I will describe, if I may, two teachers who have inspired me, both of whom have a clue unless they're watching. One is a man named Jacob Bernowski. Anyone old enough to remember the Ascent of Man program that was on television? Where this man, way before Sagan, way before anyone tried to do documentaries that would be educational, created a documentary for the BBC called The Ascent of Man. And he tried to show man, and woman, man's progress through time. But by doing that, he also was very careful to look at where we have missed the target and where we have failed desperately to hold on the fragility of the freedoms we need to be able to be safe in this world. And in one of his chapters, he goes from knowledge to certainty, where he tries in some extraordinarily artistic way to take you on a journey in that chapter from the look at one individual human being and say, here he is, what can you know about him? And then applying every scientific tool there was at the time to look at him. Where was he hot? Where was he cold? Where was his teeth? He brought artists to touch him, blind people to touch him and describe him. He brought any way we had within this science and human values to tell us what this human being was about. And then he left him. And then the rest of the journey was a journey into this great time in the 20th century when teacher and student walked together in Germany and they practiced the Socratic method and they thought together and they were tolerant together. But underneath, in the basement, was race science going on in these German universities. But they were in the basement. They were not valued. They were not made, not acknowledged. And yet, he was able to take us in this story through the time when that tolerance and that fragile, kind relationship between teacher and student working to make the world a better place was overcome by race science and racism, bigotry, hatred, and then opportunism of all those who were able to follow him, sometimes in the name of education, as Eichmann did, educated Eichmanns, sometimes in the name of the church, sometimes in the name of good schooling, often in the name of bigotry. This story ends ultimately at Nagasaki and in Hiroshima. He's trying to tell us that those who believe in the absolute certainty of dogma and have no place for difference and no place for difference as it is and should be dignified will ultimately bring down the earth upon ourselves. And that's really what happened in the 20th century. And its legacies, as we see in the racism and the bigotry and the interpersonal hates and interethnic hates, are really shaking the very foundations of our world as we start the 21st century with genocide, and the same genocide that began the 20th century. So I think about Jacob Bernowski and want to tell you this story. When he was invited to speak at MIT on science and human values, the very marriage of those two things, my husband a doctor, the humanities that my son works on, and my children, he brought them together like DNA. And he said that when he was at Nagasaki, he got off a ship after the war, and he got off an American ship, and they were playing the song, Is You Is or Is You Ain't My Baby. And he walked off this American ship into these ruins, the Mitsubishi factory, into the clinical ashy remains of what human beings had done, not technology. And he said to himself, I have had a moment that dwarfed my imagination. Those are teachable moments. That's what Facing History tries to do, stop us in our tracks with a moment that's beyond our imagination. And so he went to his friends, all of whom were in great positions of power, and he said to them, if you hold meetings that weigh on the fate of nations, hold them in these clinical ashy remains so people can see what they're capable of doing to one another as individuals, groups, and in institutions. And he was told one by one, you cannot do that. It's messy. You cannot do that. It's controversial. You cannot do that. It is going to make delegates uncomfortable. So I might suggest that what Facing History needs to do and what we all need to do is find that time where we can deal in that disequilibrium that allows us the dis-ease, not the disease, the dis-ease that we need in order to be able to deal with our different perspectives and our different understandings of the world. Hannah Arendt, and I'll finish, at the Eichmann trial said what she saw there was the ultimate Socratic evil, thoughtlessness. And she answered herself when she asked, can you get people to abstain from evil? And she said, yes, if you can get them to walk through one another's shoes and see the world through a different lens. So I appreciate so much my staff, my colleagues, my friends, my family, and you, Alan Gleitsman, for allowing me truly to be among these unsung heroes and heroines who are now sung, and I will hear them forever. Thank you very, very much.
We need people to inspire us. 10 years ago, 2 teachers started an extraordinary charter school in Los Angeles. They began in 2 rooms that they leased from a community church, and for the first 3 years of this school, every Friday afternoon, the teachers and the students would work together and pack up all of their chairs and desks and school materials and put them in the closet and sweep the floor and mop it so that the church that owned the rooms could have their services that weekend. And Sunday evening, the teachers would come into work to get the school ready for the next day. For a decade, Kevin Sved and Jonathan Williams have led the Accelerated School in Los Angeles, California, an inspiration for all of us engaged in this same challenge. Today, their commitment has grown to a school that will soon hold 1,000 students in pre-K through 12. And their impact is felt far beyond those 1,000 students and their teachers and their families and their community. Even reaching beyond those lucky people, Kevin and Jonathan have built a professional development center so that the lessons they learn in Los Angeles can be used by others throughout the country
and that lessons learned elsewhere can be shared for the benefit of their students in Los Angeles. Just 2 weeks ago, Jonathan Williams was sworn in as a member of the Board of Education for the state of California. That means he's now one of the folks being sued by his neighbor, Mr. Mark Rosenbaum. I introduce to you Kevin Sved and Jonathan Williams, two leaders who are part of the solution.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We're at the end of the show. If you notice in the program, it's an alphabetical listing. Often the accelerated score gets placed either under T or A, depending on the preference. When our test scores go up and it looks like we're in competition with the neighboring schools, they put us under T. When we're the last one to get our reports in, they put us under A. But in this group, we could go anywhere because we're so honored to be part of the wonderful honorees. And thanks to you, Alan, we all feel special today for the hard work that we're doing. So thank you so much. We really appreciate it. It was mentioned that our school is growing from pre-K through 12th grade. Right now we're at K-9. And we started just K-4 and adding a grade a year. And the reason we're going to pre-K is because we really believe that we need to do all we can do to get our students ready for that next level. Not only college, but beyond. It was mentioned earlier about contributing back to the community. That's our vision as well, to really transform South Central LA and provide a model for inner city transformation. And it really takes such an important partnership. And we joke at times that Opie and Homeboy started a charter school. Looking at us, you can see who's Opie. But we say that jokingly because really, if we can do it, we really believe everybody can do it. Everybody can play a role in transforming our inner city communities where there is really so much need. And when you look at the violence in the communities, look at the lack of health care, lack of educational opportunities, there's really such a huge need. And we're here receiving this award really on behalf of those in our community. There's so many people that have put in the time, effort, and energy to do all that the Accelerated School is doing, from our parents and our students to our teachers and instructional aides, our maintenance staff, our technology people, and all the other staff that we have. It started just 2 of us. Now we have a full and part-time staff of about 95 people. But even more importantly, it's our volunteers. The people on our board of trustees, on our committees, and our supporters that really help us have the kind of money that we need to provide that extra boost that our communities really need to have equal opportunity in America. After-school programs, intervention programs, health and wellness. We're building a health center into our new site as well. Healthcare is not accessible in our community. So there's so much additional need that we need, that we can provide. And so thank you to everybody who's doing what you can. And this is a great opportunity for us to reflect, be rejuvenated, re-inspired by all the great work of our colleagues, and just go back and continue to make a great difference. Thank you so much.
I'd just like to echo everything that Kevin said, as well as I'm just privileged to be with such an incredible group of leaders. I've never considered myself an activist. You know, those were always those loud and rambunctious folks, like one of whom we met today, who create problems for other lying in the middle of the streets. But education is such a second-class kind of area that is often not recognized. That like I said, never thought of myself as an activist, but someone who just simply wanted to make a difference for children, because that really is what it is about. This year marks another chapter in the saga of the Accelerated School, in that we've started the high school. And I have always wanted to be at a place like Harvard University, so thank you, Alan, for making this possible. As well, we have a couple of folks here in the audience who are working with our kids in studying this first year of would-be graduates from the Accelerated School. Karen Foster and Mike Nicola are here at the university helping us to really focus on a study that's going to help our kids have the early college experience, so that my friend Mark won't have to sue the Accelerated School. And I have my Accelerated School hat on, and I won't talk about state issues until I talk to our state attorneys. But in any event, just want to thank Alan and Rhee and the Gleitsman Foundation. It really is a privilege to be associated with such incredible people and at such an incredible place. Thank you very much.
Before David Gergen spoke how wonderful it was that Wendy Kopp not only started Teach for America, but people that had gone through the program have now spawned their own activist organizations. And there's no doubt in my mind that people that are going to the schools that you have created will aspire to this kind of activism themselves and be active in doing things in the future. I'd like to leave you with one idea, though. And this is directed to the Kennedy School students here and other Harvard students. Almost all of the honorees that spoke today have been working in their organization for about 10 years. A couple of years more, a couple of years less, but many of them 10 years, some a little more. But I suggest to you that if you're at all interested in improving the world that we live in, that you look at these people and see where you could be 10 years from now, because they started really much less power than you're going to have when you get out of the school with the knowledge and support that you have. They started with the knowledge that they had to do something, and they were willing to work at it. So you can aspire to do that and more, and I certainly hope that you do. And I thank you very much for coming today.
Thank you so much.